Hello, welcome to another edition of The Debate. I'm Kaveh Taqvi. After the failed Geneva talks, changes have been abound in the Syrian equation. Saudi Arabia sidelined Prince Bandar bin Sultan with Interior Minister Prince Mohammed bin Nayef to carry out the Syrian policy. Prince Nayef is known for his close ties with the U.S. Is that a sign that Saudi Arabia has realized that the terror support has spiraled out of control? Is everything under the U.S. control now? On this edition of The Debate, we'll also discuss the significance of Syria's FSA chief being sacked, Jordan's role, whom Syria accused of stirring the revolt in the south, and a surprise comment by Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who said U.S. officials privately admit that terrorism, not Syria's President Bashar al-Assad, is the main threat to Syria. You're watching The Debate. Joining us in this edition is former U.S. Marine Ken O'Keefe from London, and from Newsmax magazine, Stuart Stogel joins us from New York. Gentlemen, welcome. Ken O'Keefe, first with you, a reaction since the Geneva talks, many significant developments spelling change, and this one was significant. Prince Bandar bin Sultan sidelined. He lost his job on the Syrian file, replaced by Saudi's Interior Minister Prince Mohammed bin Nayef. What do you make of the replacement?
Well, you know, the way I see the world is that each nation really is like a chess piece, and it's a chessboard, and Saudi Arabia has played historically for quite some time now a role in stoking the fires of so-called terrorism. So much of the terrorism that we've seen in Iraq, I would argue probably the false flag at Ghouta in Syria also, and countless other events have been funded by Saudi intelligence and Prince Bandar. And this relationship has been a very, very useful one, because the stoking of fires of so-called terrorism increases the rhetoric on the supposedly other side, the United States, which is able to continue its farcical war on terror and ultimately concentrate power further in the police and the military and the government and take away more of the rights of the people. So there's a very intimate relationship there, and it's clear that more and more people are realizing this. They're seeing the dangers of this, and therefore there's a shift in this policy forcing Prince Bandar out, who's been a favored friend and ally, but he'll be thrown out in the trash just like Saddam Hussein was, keeping in mind he was our best friend and ally while he was killing Iranians and gassing Kurds. So we don't have any problem, the United States power structure, throwing out the trash, and Prince Bandar, as far as I'm concerned, is no better than any kind of trash you'd throw out anyway.
Well, Stuart Stogel, if you want to take a look at this, I'd like to get your reaction on it, because there's deductions made here that Prince Bandar was not able to successfully pull this Syrian file off. Therefore, you have Nayef coming in, but that, in a way, is a defeat for Saudi Arabia, which is pulling now into the sphere of the U.S., now the U.S. being in control of the situation, and, of course, with Saudi Arabia's cooperation. Do you see it that way?
Well, not necessarily. The way I look at it is that the Saudis were probably butting heads with the Americans, and the Saudi hierarchy came to the conclusion that Barack Obama is going to be here whether you like it or not for the next 2.5 years. So they're shifting their overall foreign policy to a more U.S. position. Bandar is very close to the Bush administration. Bandar was very close to major Republican politicians, and I think that didn't sit well with John Kerry. So I think this was a realization that they're stuck with Obama, and they were looking for a better relationship. It's in the Saudis' interest to coordinate more closely with Washington, at least with the Washington administration that's in power right now.
Well, Ken O'Keefe, an advisor to the Saudi Arabia's top royals, he said, and I'm quoting him, changes signal the kingdom would now emphasize diplomatic means, including outreach and pressure on Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah. And of course, these are people who support President Bashar al-Assad. Is that another way of saying that Saudi Arabia has realized that this regime change plan obviously is not working, and the support for terrorists has actually failed under Prince Bandar?
Well, what I would say first off is that this has nothing to do with the Republican Democratic paradigm. And again, thankfully, more and more people in the United States, and here in the UK as well, Tory, Labour, these are all puppets. The vast majority of them are nothing more than puppets. They say different things when it comes campaign time, but when we actually look at the policies of Bush or Obama, they're basically the same policies. There may be a few just image type differences, but in truth, the policies remain the same. So what's happening with Saudi Arabia has really nothing to do with their internal policies or a shift in their policies. It's compelled upon them because the world is seeing more and more this ridiculous and dangerous relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia and Israel, by the way. Saudi Arabia and Israel play very important roles in this whole terrorism game, false flag industry that the United States feeds off of.
Well, Stuart Stogel, it's interesting how you have the A-list of American officials, including the U.S. President, Secretary of State, National Security Advisor. I could keep going on. The CIA Agency Chief John Brennan, Homeland Security Secretary, all of these officials giving the red carpet treatment to this Prince Nayef coming to the States last week. How is he going to be different in terms of the relationship that is now going to be established between Saudi Arabia and the U.S.? Because we know that they were not really getting close. They were actually parting ways based on the shift, as it was stated by many people.
Well, we have to remember that Bandar was in Washington for more than 20 to 25 years. And Bandar was a rather independent soul, despite what your guest may say. The new replacement for Bandar is probably going to coordinate more closely with the U.S. officials you just mentioned, and there'll be less confrontation, internal confrontation, and more coordination. So I think what will happen now is that you'll basically see the Saudi policy mimic the policy that's being espoused by both John Kerry and Barack Obama.
What is that policy of John Kerry and Barack Obama, Stuart Stogel?
Well, that's a good question. I have a hard time figuring out myself at times. If you remember, Barack Obama says that Bashar al-Assad has to go. Well, he hasn't said that in about 6 to 8 months. So it's really unclear as to what exactly is going on vis-a-vis Syria and the United States. I mean, we just don't know. It's a guessing game right here in New York.
And Ken O'Keefe, also to you the same question.
Well, the policy shift has nothing to do with any of the internal values of Barack Obama or John Kerry, because quite frankly, they have no values. These people are puppets. Barack Obama reads the teleprompter and he does what he's told. Any kind of shift is due to the awareness of the people of the world who are becoming more and more aware of the fact of the way the world functions. If you want to understand power in this world and who makes decisions, then you need to understand who prints the money. The Central Bank of Europe, the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve Bank are private banks. They have an infinite supply of money, and with that money they can buy anything and anyone that can be bought, and that includes virtually all of our politicians. And this would explain very clearly why the policies of Bush are virtually the same as Barack Obama, despite tremendous differences when it comes to campaign time. And we can go back historically and look at the policies. Even Clinton, he killed over 500,000 children on his watch. So the differences are very stylistic. They have nothing to do with substance.
Do you have a reaction to that, Stuart Stogel?
Well, yeah, I mean,